Hey ladies, I'm Jeff. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Jensen.
Jensen.
Bree.
And Simone.
All right, great to meet you guys. So why are you guys here?
I am supporting I'm opposing the ban of abortions. I think it's completely inappropriate. I believe that we're lacking regulating guns, but you are taking our rights from us, and we've already as women have struggled with our rights and having the right to vote, and now you are completely degrading our reproductive opportunities.
And kids are dying at a rapid rate anyway right now with the gun, like the guns going on in the schools. There's hundreds of thousands of kids in the foster home system that don't get taken for, they get taken for granted. So it's just crazy that this is where we start with. We're not taking any steps in educating people about sex. We're not taking any steps in contraceptives like birth control. Like none of that's being taken, but we're going to these extreme measures to have these bans that are extreme, and then not having to take steps forward to that. It's just an extreme ban, I feel.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm more of like it being a woman's choice. I think the choice to have sex is both men and women. The choice to carry a child kind of more falls on the woman, because the man can totally just leave at any point. And like, if we're going to make abortions illegal and have single women now raising children that maybe they never even wanted to have by themselves, or maybe it's hard for them to have that child because of like mental illnesses or being raped or something like that. So for me, it's more of a choice rather than a political viewing and wanting to murder babies, obviously.
So you mentioned that if a child has to be raised by a single mother or it's disabled, that we should be able to kill it.
We're so advanced in technology and science that we know ahead of time, before the baby's even born, that what conditions they could possibly have. So to be able to like prevent that ahead of time, especially if you're a low-income family, you're not going to be able to take care of that baby if they come out with any kind of birth defects. And there's no government assistance either to help that parent take care of it.
So again, but foundationally, well, you're saying that if it's disabled and we discover it's disabled in the womb, we should kill the disabled children.
I'm sorry, I meant mental health in the mother and the parents, like people who are just not suitable to be having kids and don't want to have kids for that.
Okay, I'm going to answer. Thank you for clarifying that. But it sounded like that's what you were saying. If we discover in the womb through technology that they're going to be disabled or something's wrong, we should be able to kill that child.
I wouldn't say, so this is the thing, I don't think there's no programs to help this parent or these parents out when the baby's born. So it's like you're kind of leaving this parent up to like, you have to keep it until it's born, and then you got to figure out yourself. Like, we're going to be in control of your body until it's born, and then once you have it, that's all you. And I think that's kind of an unfair.
No, I do actually agree with you that we need to make sure that we're caring for women, for mothers and fathers, for children. We actually need to. I think we're required, and love would require that sort of a thing. But I think foundationally, we're not really talking about that in terms of the abortion discussion, because what we're talking about is the argument is if something's wrong with the child in the womb, we should be able to kill it. And we're saying that if it's raised in poverty, we should be able to kill it.
I don't think so. I think that's an extreme way to put it, but I guess I just think there's so many more steps that can be taken. Like, I think the topic of abortion is a very sensitive topic, obviously, but I think that there's so many other things, like the ban's going to an extreme, I feel. And I feel like we're not taking steps, like appropriate steps before getting to this ban that need to be taken. Like I said, I think sex education is huge.
Yeah,
I think
completely. And even in high school, even in college, I did a presentation about it, and many students don't even know even the STIs or even just safe sex in general. We have a Walmart across from our campus that doesn't even sell condoms. So it's a lack.
I just think there should be steps taking it forward. I think eventually, maybe down the line, if we were to take these steps in order to prevent this final step of aborting, then maybe we could get to here. But I think we haven't even taken these baby steps to getting to that point, and that's kind of where I'm at, because Planned Parenthoods, I know everyone's against them, but they offer so much more than just abortion. So I think they offer a lot, and it's cheaper.
So there's an argument that could be made in terms of, if we think about this critically, because I respect you very immensely, and I believe that God's given us a mind to use it and to use it well and to be consistent. But if you think about what we're saying, if we say things like Planned Parenthood also offers a lot of other services, well, my response is that Auschwitz served a very good chicken soup, and they clothed and they fed people and gave them jobs. But what's the main problem we all recognize is they were murdering people.
So you're comparing the Holocaust to Planned Parenthoods, or are you comparing the Holocaust to abortions?
Well, in the Holocaust, we had a group of people who looked at Jews and said, I know it looks like a person, it's not a person, it's a Jew. Yeah. We're allowed to kill them. And in the abortion discussion, we're saying, I know that it technically is a human and it looks like a human, but we are allowed to kill it. Okay. And so in the situation we have around us, we have that thought process that I know that it's a human being. There's no disputing that. It can't be disputed. Even Planned Parenthood acknowledges that from the moment of conception, it's human. There's no denying that. All it is a human developing.
Right.
And so what we need to ask is, when is it okay to murder a human being? When is it okay to kill a human?
Okay, so then my question for you. So I just had a friend who was her third child. She just had to get it aborted because she had a cyst on her ovaries, I believe, or her bladder. It bursted. And she's in critical care right now, but they had to abort the baby because it was either the baby was going to die regardless, but the mom was for sure going to die if the baby wasn't aborted. So my question is, like, so in that instance, is that okay? Like, I feel like we're saying black or white, and I feel like there's a lot of gray area that needs to be covered, and I feel like it's not a black and white issue. I think there's a lot of, and that's why I'm kind of, the laws are extreme, too extreme for me.
Black and white, and I feel there's a lot of gray, and there's a lot of ways that we can help stop aborting as much, or stop, like, helping.
Why would we do that, though?
Sorry, thank you.
Is it a moral problem? Is abortion a moral problem we would want to lessen the amount, or isn't it just something we just do?
No, I don't like the idea of abortion. I like the idea of a woman having a choice. And I have worked at a child facility for about 8 years, and I've seen what it looks like, what kids turn into when they don't have supportive parents, and parents that don't want them, don't really care for them, and it ruins their lives. And that's where I'm like, I would rather...
Should they be dead then? Is that what you're arguing?
I think they should be educated. I think we need to start education.
No,
but there's steps.
But to her argument, I feel for you. As a pastor, we care for so many people in so many different situations. Poor families, families with a lot of needs. We've cared for tons of families that have considered abortion and then turned away from the abortion clinic, and now those children are alive. I've held them in my arms. But if we talk about what's actually happening, yeah, I respect the fact that you said I'm not happy about abortion, but I just want you to consider, why not? If it's not a moral issue, why not? Why not? Isn't it the same as removing a wart or a toenail? Or do we recognize, all of us, that it's really something different?
I think everybody here recognizes that it's more than removing a wart or a toenail.
What is it removing?
It's removing a life. It is.
A human being.
But what are your, so you think rape's okay, and then the woman should carry out her pregnancy?
No, I think that rapists deserve the death penalty.
So then
but not the children.
The law in Alabama says that rape and incest, that's okay.
No.
I'm saying if you experience this by rape or incest, and then it's okay, you have to carry your baby to term. Is that not what it says?
Well, I'll respond to that.
Yeah.
So first of all, and this goes back to one of the main points you made a minute ago. Sorry, I missed it. And that's that less than 2% of abortions, less than 2% are for rape, incest, or life of the mother. Mm-hmm. The rest are essentially elective. Mm-hmm. So less than 2% are for rape, incest, and life of the mother. If we consider that, what's that mean? That the vast majority of abortions are done electively because they just don't want the child, or different circumstances. Yeah. So in the issue you brought up, where you have a life, the life of the mother truly in danger, you said the child's dying anyways. Mm-hmm. And so what you're talking about there is a rescue operation. You're not talking about an elective taking of a human life. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a mother and a child who are hanging off a cliff in a car, and you have a chance to grab one of them. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about abortion here. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the ability to just kill our children at will. Oh, that's what everyone's here for? Is because we're saying this is Kill Your Children March? I didn't know. Well, in the womb, it's a human being from conception. I'm asking you, like, and it's a child. So you're saying, so if someone is raped, let's just say someone's raped, what do you think? Should that woman carry it to term? That's all I'm asking you. If someone's raped, I do appreciate the question. Yeah. If somebody's raped, I think we should give the man the death penalty, not the child. So the woman should carry out the birth, is what you're saying? I don't think we should punish children for the crimes of their fathers, no. Okay, so yeah, and then my next... Well, let me ask you, I'll toss it back to you now. Okay. So now, in your worldview, a woman is raped. Should the man get the death penalty? Should the man get the death penalty? See, that, and I think that's another life, but that's a life thing too, so he can die. That's fine, but then because he's committed a horrendous, wicked crime. Okay. The child hasn't. So in your perspective, I would think pro-life for everyone, not just like the death penalty is where you draw the line at. No, I'm hearing you. Yeah, the difference is in terms of a category. Yeah. A human being who maliciously, wickedly rapes a woman, he deserves to die because he's committed a crime. Yeah. But I just want you to consider something. I don't mean this as an attack on you. I mean this with true respect and love for you. You had a hard time answering whether you thought the man should get the death penalty for raping a woman, but you're this fast about the child should die. Well, because it's just crazy to me, like I said, like with science and everything, and look at the statistics, like look who mostly is affected by people who have to carry out their pregnancies. It's women of color and women who low income. That's majority of the women who have to deal with these pregnancies and then don't get to, like,
aren't going to be able to have these abortions. And to me, that's like crazy because it's affecting a certain group of people. It's not affecting, like, you know what I mean? Like, we have to look statistically, like, at who this is majority affecting as well.
Do you know that, do you know the history of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger with black people? Do you know that, yeah, you know that history, that she was a very serious racist, and she targeted African Americans, and this is what really bothers me and troubles me, because I think racism is a wicked, evil sin. To look at another human being because of a difference in color of skin is a wicked, evil thing. Well, Margaret Sanger was not only a rabid racist, but Planned Parenthood, since the very beginning, has set up their locations closest to low-income areas and predominantly black areas. Planned Parenthood is actually responsible for wiping out much of our black brothers and sisters in this country.
I think that's kind of like dramatic, just because.
No, that's a fact.
No, and I believe that. I mean, I don't know enough about that history, like, prior. Like, I don't know anything about that. But I'm saying, like, people evolve, hopefully, is what we're hoping, and that you can, like, overcome. Like, you can have a different perspective.
Except that Planned Parenthoods are still set up in predominantly black areas.
And of low income, right? Are they low income?
And next to female dorms, predominant female dorms, college campuses where the women are, areas where there's more of a black community, and low income areas, yes.
Yeah, because we've seen that that's usually the communities that are most affected.
So Planned Parenthood is predominantly killing black children.
I mean, I don't know how statistics on it. Like, I'm not going to answer that because I really don't know. Like, I haven't looked it up, but all I know for sure is that those are the communities that are most affected by.
So, and just in terms of what we're thinking about, when we think about, because you guys are obviously very beautiful people, and you're very loving and gracious, but in this case, I just want to encourage you to see that maybe you've adopted a cultural perspective that you haven't fully thought through yet. Because you acknowledge completely, and I acknowledge that abortion, we're not happy with that. But I just want you to consider this. If abortion is a moral right, then there's no reason not to be happy. There's no consequence to it. So what?
Can I ask you a question? But I don't know if you want it on camera.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I know, like, a lot with, like, the Catholic churches and, like, a lot of churches, that there's priests who molest children.
Yes.
And to me, it's kind of like you guys are choosing, and not you guys, like, I don't want to generalize, like, everyone, like, here, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of people choose to look at this and say, how are you guys killing children? Like, why are you guys so blind to, like, that's, like, messed up? And it's like, well, I can look at that and say, well, you guys are turning a blind eye to a lot of the stuff that happens in the church.
I'm so happy to answer that. And I'm really glad you brought it up, because I think it's such an evil thing. First of all, I'm not Roman Catholic.
Yeah. But,
so
but even, like, a lot of churches, like,
yeah, no,
you know
but I agree with you. I actually think that the Roman Catholic priests who have been involved in that deserve the death penalty. I think they should be brought up on charges. They should be brought up on criminal charges, and they should be given the death penalty as punishment for actually doing such a heinous thing to a child. Because we should protect children.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree.
How come not in the womb?
Well, and this is the thing. So, like, it's like I said, there's thousands of kids already in, like, the country who don't have homes, who don't have parents, and, like, to me, it's like we could all be working together to help those kids.
And we should.
So we're choosing to focus on this issue, like, and like I said, like, I'm all about, like, preventative and, like, education. So, like, why are we not preventing? Or, like, educating people or preventing it? It's like we're just choosing to, like,
can I answer that? Just, and hopefully this is an encouragement, not a point to make you feel small or to refute you. But Alabama does the ban. But Alabama is also leading the nation in adoption. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so they have a state who said that don't kill these children, and we want all your children. And I want you guys to hear from me, just as a friend and as a pastor. I've been outside the abortion clinic for years now. I've seen God save hundreds and hundreds of children, literally thousands across the country. I've held these children in my arms when the mom was in pre-op on the table, and she changed her mind when we were, calling out and trying to help. And I've asked hundreds of times outside the abortion clinics. I've said, we'll adopt your baby. We'll pay for absolutely everything. You'll have no cost to you whatsoever. And this is the most common response that we've gotten, truly. And I think it's heartbreaking. They'll turn around and they'll say to me, I couldn't give my baby up for adoption. And then they go inside and they kill their baby.
Do you think that's an easy, like, I'm just curious, do you think that that's an easy decision?
No, I don't.
So I just feel like when she's, like, there and that decision's made, I just feel like we shouldn't be, like, telling her. That's where this all stems from. Like, the whole abortion thing, like, do I think we should kill kids? Like, obviously not. Like, I worked with kids my whole life. Like, I don't think that's an option, but I think women should have a choice. That's my whole thing. Like, I think
a choice to kill their kids.
If you want to call it that, and you can call it that, I think that's pretty.
Well, isn't that the truth, though?
Yeah, but, like, I'm saying, like, I think there should be steps. Like, and it's sad that we've gone to this far, this extreme, because we haven't come up with steps to get there yet.
Shouldn't we say together, though? I mean, I'd be willing to work hand in hand with you.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't kill any children. But we also need to work together to care for all these children that have needs.
think we should give them the choice, but I also think we should help them have decisions like, hey, this is sex education first and foremost, because majority of people, I'm sure, don't know much about much about that. Like, that's truth. Like, I never had sex education ever in college, high school, anywhere. Like, never.
Did you go to public school?
I did go to public school. I'm in university right now, and so it's just like.
You didn't get sex education in public school?
We learned about our period. We learned about our period.
You got it in elementary school.
Great.
And it was menstruating,
That's all it was
and
about.
that was the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Anything outside of human sexuality, I've had to take interest on my own and do my own research, and then hopefully been able to spread that to my friends. And I think that with the whole, we aren't happy about aborting a baby. It's not that. It is the fact that choosing to have an abortion is not easy for women as well, and it's a hard decision. And so
I believe that, but because I think anybody who's a mom is going to struggle morally with the issue of taking the life of your own child. So of course it's a hard decision to make. I'd say it ought to be a hard decision to make.
Yeah.
But can you guys see from even our discussion here that if we all know we're talking about a human being, if we all know that we don't want this as a good thing, then the solution can't be, well, let's just let it happen because she has a right over her own body. I think we all recognize, because we're admitting it, what's inside of her is not her body.
Well, I think there's more, like, it's more than just that's in these laws. Is that's my issue. So, like, the problem I'm having with it is that, you're going to go be sent to jail for having an abortion. Like, I just think, like, those are kind of extreme. And
What should a mom get who kills her child?
I don't think a mom should get anything. I think
So the woman who drove her children into a river, her two kids into a river?
Taking the first breath of air, I don't think that counts as a living, breathing life.
Okay, so that helps me to see your perspective. Okay, so if a person is in the hospital, they've been in a horrific accident, and they're required to be on a ventilator to survive, so we have to mechanically make sure they're breathing. They can't breathe on their own. Can I kill that person because they can no longer breathe on their own?
Yeah, they have wills, or not wills, but they have stuff written out for situations like that. I've had my own made that if I'm on like a breathing system, or if I'm unable to make my own choices, I have it written down what I want, and I have my parents
So
who
that's
know.
your choice to determine what happens with your body.
Yeah, because I've had a life,
So the
and I've
baby
had.
in the womb isn't being allowed to have that.
But I've had the life, and I've had the opportunity to make that choice.
But not the baby.
But if you were aborted right now, you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't know any better.
So just kill him.
You're making it so, like, but I'm just saying, like, you wouldn't know, you know what I mean? And like,
So if I fell over right now and I stopped breathing, would you guys come help me?
Yes.
But your argument is if you're not breathing, you're not human.
Okay, but you've already taken your first breath of air. You've already.
And you're here with us
You
right
are
now.
here.
So you have you have an arbitrary standard that once you breathe, you're human.
I think the whole thing we're trying to get to is that we necessarily, like, we think women should just have their own choice. Like, we understand where you're coming from, and I totally respect that. Like, I totally get that. And I think that's amazing that you are.
Should a man have his choice to rape a woman if he pleases? That's his choice?
No.
And that's so. I mean, I think that's so different.
Why? It's a person.
A woman to rape.
So just to think about the parallel now.
Okay.
A man is doing something to a woman's body.
Yeah.
It's his body. He's saying, I have a choice over my own body, but he's doing it to somebody else's body. You're saying he has no right to do to somebody else's body things without their permission. But the woman with the baby in her womb, you're saying she does have permission to violate another person's body without their permission.
And just really quick, you're comparing rape and abortion. Like, are you saying those
Well,
are the
I'm
same?
saying in terms of a category.
Yeah.
In the situation of rape, the man is making a choice with his body,
Yeah.
what he wants to do to another person's body, right? And you're saying no to that, but you're saying yes to the mother who does something to another body within her that's not her body.
I think there are going to be ways to twist it, and we could probably go back and forth all day.
Isn't that a parallel? Isn't that a parallel though?
I mean, I don't see it like that because we have different views, and I see your side, and I appreciate how nice and how you're going about this conversation, and I appreciate that your views, but I think that we'll probably just end up going back and forth all day because we both respect each other's views and we can have conversations, but there's so much gray area and there's so many ways to twist things.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
And again, this is not to create conflict between us,
no.
but just to ask you this with honesty and integrity here. Is it possible that you have that perspective, that we just have different perspectives because you can't answer the challenge? That it's a person doing something with their body as a choice to another human being's body against that person's will.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna say rape and abortion are the same, or at least in that instance, like a man's taking his whatever, able to control a woman's body, then why is that any different?
Well, maybe clarify.
Yeah.
What's wrong with rape?
That it's unwarranted sexual intercourse. It's not wanted. Obviously, it's someone who is forcing themselves on someone else. Like,
isn't that what's happening in abortion? I'm forcing myself onto another human being.
I mean, I'm just curious because I haven't looked at the statistics. Like, what are the statistics of, like you said, it's 2% people who get raped?
Less than 2% is announced as abortion is for rape. Less than 2% is life, incest, or life of the mother, incest, or rape.
But I'm just curious, sorry. What is going to happen with all of the children that are no longer allowed to be aborted? They're going to be had, and if their parents don't want them, what's going to happen to our adoption sister in foster care? I've seen so many kids get the worst shit end of the stick of foster care, and like it breaks my heart to the point that like, why bring them into this world if you're not going to be there and care and love for them, and you can't assure that somebody else will?
You seem like you seem like a very compassionate and a very bright person. I mean that sincerely. So just consider this one thing. One is that if I take your argument as you state it, because the child is poor and it's a rough life, we ought to just kill them.
Oh, I didn't even say poor. There are so many children who are from rich homes who just get ignored. I grew up in Scottsdale with kids who have drug issues, alcohol issues, because they have no attention, they had no support ever by their rich parents.
So they'd be better off dead.
They might think so, and some of them end up like that because of the choices that they make, because of the
choices they make.
Yeah, but it's still the same result because of the lack and love of support. And if those parents would have just known that they wouldn't be able to offer that and can't assure that anybody else can, then maybe they would have saved those kids a whole lot of hurt and a whole lot of pain in their life, to the fact that they had to take their own life, or they had to get involved with things that did take their life.
So would you agree that we should have a council of people to determine whether you should live?
I don't even know if it should come up. You mean like in the womb?
Well, like what you're arguing is that people should be able to make the determination that your life's going to be too hard. I'll decide for you. You should die.
Oh, no, absolutely not, because there's no way to predict that, which is the same.
You just said that's what you would do. If parents would have known and could predict that children would be raised and have difficulties, they should be able to kill them.
No, I didn't mean predict like that. I meant like if the mother carrying it is not going to be there and offer that support, and know that it has the possibility of getting that, which I'm not saying it doesn't, because there's some great, my stepmom was adopted. I'm not against adoption at all, but our adoption system and our foster care system is so messed up right now. Yeah. Adding millions of children into that is just...
So one thing, just to go look this up, because I think it would really bless you. In Colorado, the Christian church in Colorado worked together in Colorado's adoption system, and they cleared it out.
Amazing.
I would love to see
and I want to say this, and this is just probably something, I don't know if we'd agree on it or not, but I think it would be solid. Early on in American history, it was the Christian churches that actually owned the orphanage and adoption care system, and we were doing amazing with it. When the government stepped in and took over the adoption system and the agencies and everything else the way that they have now, we've seen this catastrophic situation with the adoption care industry and the orphanages and all the rest. So I think when you allow the state to get involved in what the church should be involved in, and they control it, it creates massive conflict. But I think that when you see the Christian churches working together in the orphanages and the adoption care industry, we're actually owning that, and we're doing a good job when we're in control of those things. So the Christian churches and Christian agencies across the country are the ones who are actually leading in the orphanage care system and everything else. We're the ones that are doing the most. Yeah. And I think when you give it to the state, you create devastation. Awful stuff that you and I would probably be standing outside together fighting against. Yeah. But I want to just show you something, and this means so much to me. You guys hear this. You guys are lovely, bright, compassionate people. You have so much concern for children.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Why not for the children in the womb?
So I just have a question. This is kind of like a side note kind of thing. Do you think there should be any steps, honestly, any steps before there's any kind of the abortion factor gets in there? Do you think we should educate children on sex, and do you think contraception should be available to more people?
I think, okay, I appreciate that question. Yeah. So I think that I think we need to get back to a place in our country where we actually recognize that we are not a law unto ourselves, that there's a law higher than us, and we should teach people about the value and beauty and dignity of life and sex. Because our kids are being taught in public schools now, any form of sex that you desire, whatever your affections are, that's what you should do. You should go for it. There's no pure standard of sexuality. You should do whatever you please, whatever your affections are. We're teaching women that they're not so valuable as to actually preserve themselves for a man that actually commits themselves to them. I think you should definitely have, we've adopted a mindset that women are not so valuable and their sexuality not so amazing that it should be reserved for a person who is actually in love with them and committed to them for life. We teach women that you can give yourself away to whoever, and if they throw you away later, hey, at least you got to enjoy yourself, or something to that effect. So I think we should teach people that they are valuable, they're image bearers of God, and sex is actually a beautiful, amazing, powerful thing that should be protected. And because we don't teach that, of course we have girls with all these guys who are just deadbeats, taking advantage of girls, taking advantage of their bodies for their own pleasure, for their own joy, and then just kicking them aside. And so you have, the abuse of women in our culture. I think it's because we've abandoned a Christian view of sexuality in women.
But do you think that fits everyone? I mean, so we know it's not realistic for everybody because, like you said, not everyone has that mindset. So what would be more realistic steps to take? I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to wait until marriage to have sex. But so then what's your other solution? Because
my secondary solution, besides coming into a relationship of peace and forgiveness with God through Christ, is that we absolutely should tell people. If you're going to go that direction and devalue other human beings in this way and your sexuality, of course I would prefer someone wears a condom so they don't risk actually creating another life. But if you do create a precious human being in the womb, you can't kill it. Yes?
Do you think that anything should happen to the men who then leave their children for the women to do?
Yes. Okay. So, I don't want to get into a big belabored detailed story of American history, but in American history, when you had people who were essentially looking to God's word and God's law as the standard, they saw people as having dignity, respect, value. Women were seen as equal to men, and in terms of their value and the human dignity and all the rest. And yes, actually, in God's law, if you get somebody pregnant, God's law commanded that you actually are now required to take care of that woman. You can't be abusive to her and now leave her. And in American history, if there was a deadbeat dad, he could be brought up on criminal charges. He had to actually flee to another town. If he wasn't going to take care of his kids, he had to leave his town because that town so valued the woman and the baby that they would say, you are morally responsible to take care of that child. We don't even care about that anymore.
What about for the men who leave? We get 99 years for an abortion and they get...
I'm so glad you asked that. I think that the Alabama law had a lot lacking. And I think one of the things that should have been clarified is that anybody who's involved in the murder of an innocent human being, anybody should be criminally punished as well.
So is that part of the law, or is that what you?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Should be added. You need to be, and they need to be clear. It's not just the abortionist, but if the father is bringing the child in, he's equally guilty. He's guilty, and that needs to be clarified.
And I think in a lot of situations, women are pressured by men to get abortions as well.
I agree.
We have a lot of people who are making laws and regulations right now who have had mistresses have abortions. So it's crazy to me that you're kind of like hypocritical. You know?
Very much so. And I'm glad you see it. But can I just point you guys to this? I think the reason that we all see that together and we despise that kind of hypocrisy is because we're all made in God's image. You're all uniquely made by God. We all know the same God, ultimately. But I want to say that the reason we know that it's wrong is because we have His law written in our hearts. We know that we ought to love other human beings. We know that we ought to hate hypocrisy, and that's why we do. But what I'm arguing for is, as a Christian, is that the answer to our nation is through faith in Christ, knowing Him, having peace with God through what He's done for us, His cross and resurrection. That's the ultimate answer, is that we need to be changed from the heart up, from the heart up.
So I just have one more thing to say, and then I think we want to go join everybody.
I get it,
oh my gosh, I just totally forgot.
It's okay. Take your time. Feel free. No rush. No rush.
You said communities used to what do you say, shun kind of like the husband?
They would, if the guy had to actually leave the town to escape because if he stayed in town, he would be put up on criminal charges for not taking care of his child. But because we've abandoned God's word in our country and we don't have a Christian worldview anymore, predominantly, nobody thinks like that. So secular legislators don't think with a biblical worldview where they actually say, no, there's a standard here, and the woman has to be loved and respected and the child. We don't think like that anymore.
So in world religion classes and religion classes I've taken, I've always learned that women were always subservient to men. Until recently, I feel like this is a time where actually women have more control and more power, and to me this is where I'm feeling more equal to a man than, I mean, obviously I haven't been around for years, but like I just feel like there's more of a time. You know what I mean?
No, I'm so glad you asked that, and this is, I think, important because there's a lot of propaganda on both sides. By the way, I'm not going Republican at all. There's propaganda on both sides of the aisle, and the whole idea of like women in our culture now being seen as having more rights and everything else. But it's important to note that the worldview taught in schools today doesn't teach that you're valuable. It teaches that you and I are the products of purposeless evolutionary processes that didn't have us in mind. Our ancestors were fish, and then we were apes, and now here we are. There's nothing different between you and I and rocks and snails and horses and dogs. That's the worldview promulgated in our world today. The idea of equality between men and women isn't even historic in really most cultures except Christianity. Because the Bible says there's neither male nor female in Jesus Christ. And then we're all created as the image of God together. So in the biblical worldview, from literally Genesis chapter 1, men and women are the image of God, equal from the start. Now, we do have different roles, like I'm a dad. My wife's here somewhere. There she is. She's a mom, right? We have different roles. But according to God's word, from literally the first chapter, we are literally the same. There is no one higher or lower. We have different functions. But think about this. The worldview that you and I were taught in public school, because I went to public school, the worldview that we're taught is that you're a cosmic accident. No different than dirt, rocks, fish. Literally.
I actually didn't learn about that in school. I don't know about you guys. I never felt that way or felt like that. Like I never.
Because you're in the image of God and you're not that. But that is being taught in school. And I want to say that worldview so debases you as women, it ought to be abandoned. And I want to say that what's happening here, I love and respect you, but I want to just suggest to you one thing, and that's that I can be impacted by my surroundings. No question. I'll confess something. I wasn't raised in a Christian church, so when I first became a Christian at 16, I went to a church that actually taught me some things that just weren't even in the Bible. And I had to actually come to grips with the fact that I was impacted by my teachers and my traditions, and I had to ultimately abandon them because I saw that's not what the Bible says, and I had to turn away from it. But I just want to suggest to you in the same way, we're all impacted by our traditions and culture, and is it possible that you've been impacted by cultural apologetics and propaganda to the degree that you have three beautiful, wonderful, thoughtful women who love children so much and have so much concern for them, but in this case you've adopted a position that comes right into conflict with that.
So I think that we both agree that there definitely needs to be laws to be helping these mothers and families with who may be thinking about getting an abortion. But until that is seen, I don't think it's okay to take away a woman's choice, and not even a man and woman's, if they both decide that they cannot have a child. Then I don't think it's fair to take that away without any other laws being put in place to help them first.
I think
that's kind of like my closing.
And I think.
I get it. No, you have to go.
And like I said, like if I think there was more steps taken ahead of time, maybe we'd be on the same side. Like if there was more steps taken on the state, like I said, my whole education and like contraceptives, like and those were still disregarded. And there was like thousands of abortions still happening. Then maybe be like, wait a second, there is something still like kind of off, and then we'd probably be on the same side, like talking about it. But as of right now, I think there's so much like gray area still. And like I see what you're saying, like is murder okay in like the womb? And I'm like, I see what you're saying, and I don't want to like say yes,
no,
but like I don't want to make that decision.
But in these circumstances, you think we should be able to kill humans in the womb?
I think so, yeah.
You do.
I think that's what we're here for, and it's our choice, and that's a choice that we are allowed to make. For now. And until then, we will fight for that choice until laws are put in place to help us instead of just hurt our families and children coming into the world.
Teachers.
Can I just say one last word as you guys go?
Please do.
I don't believe that you really believe that. Here's why. I believe that if we went out together for the rest of the day to go eat together and hang out together, and we saw another human being abusing another human being, we would all stand up together to get in their way to stop them.
I wish there were more people like that, though.
But in this case, you've adopted a position that says, but in this isolated case, we ought to be able to kill the most innocent and defenseless among us. Okay, there you go. Okay, all right. It was Jeff.
Yes.
It was
Nice
great to
to meet
meet
you,
you.
Jeff.
And Simone, you were wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
great talking to you. Thank you so much.